Hello guys, welcome back. My name's Nathan, and today we're going to talk about Patrik Laine and if he should leave the Winnipeg Jets. Now, the negotiations between the Winnipeg Jets and Patrik Laine had pretty much come to a standstill, and Patrik Laine has a big decision on his hands. So when it comes to the future of both the Winnipeg Jets and the Patrik Laine camp, is it best for Patrik Laine to leave Winnipeg, and could it actually happen? Watch till the end to find out. Now, Patrik Laine's time in Winnipeg has been very interesting to say the least. So, dating back to his rookie season, of course being drafted second overall by Winnipeg, he ended up scoring 36 goals, got a ton more points too. The next season, being the 17-18 season, he got more than 40 goals, was one of the best goal scorers in the league. And going into this past NHL season, the season where he kind of slumped a little bit, I personally thought Patrik Laine would win the Maurice Richard Trophy. I thought he was going to score the most goals, and we obviously saw what happened. While he obviously still scored a ton of goals with 30 on the year, it wasn't as good as a lot of people were expecting, including me. And you can see that slump throughout the whole season. And now, Patrik Laine being a restricted free agent, it's gotten even more complicated when it comes to his relationship with the Winnipeg Jets. And the Winnipeg Jets and Patrik Laine are basically, again, as I said before, in a stalemate right now. There's not too much really on both sides happening. There's not a lot of discussion, there's not a lot of negotiations between both sides that are obviously way too far apart. And it makes sense. When it comes to Patrik Laine, he is a goal scorer, and when he's not, he is dreadful as a player. But again, he has that soft touch, he has that gift in him, which is scoring goals. And when he's on his game, as he's shown his career so far, he can be one of the best goal scorers in the NHL. Now, Patrik Laine is a polarizing player, but for very good reason. Being a goal scorer that doesn't do too much other than score goals, he's a guy that, again, the value perception-wise can be skewed in either direction. He's a guy that, again, on his game when he's scoring goals is super valuable for the Winnipeg Jets, but when he's not, which was a decent chunk of last season for Winnipeg, he can just be brutal on the ice. And Winnipeg, I can definitely see why they're taking caution there. When he's not scoring goals, again, he is hard to watch, but he's an exhilarating player, and again, talent-wise, goal scoring, there hasn't been a better player in their franchise history, at least up to this point. But again, there's just such a huge gap when it comes to negotiations between two parties. Right now, we're about a couple of weeks away from the NHL preseason starting, so the time is ticking between the two sides, and this is where we kind of get into a stalemate here, because I think when it comes to Patrik Laine, he definitely has one of the better chances to not just go into the season, but go far into the season as an RFA, still unsigned. And I think for the Winnipeg Jets, again, I've made some videos in the past about them potentially trading a guy like Patrik Laine. He's a guy that for Winnipeg, if he goes in the season, I could totally see getting traded. And a lot of teams at that point wanting to get his services. A couple weeks back, Patrik Laine had some juicy quotes in an interview. One of them was about his uncertainty with the Winnipeg Jets, and also another one uncertain about his long-term longevity with the Winnipeg Jets too. And that is surprising news, because you don't really see too many free agents say stuff like that. They're usually kind of just in the motions, you know, just say the normal stuff like hoping it gets done sooner or later, whatever it might be. But Patrik Laine obviously had some PR talk in there, but I think it is somewhat of the truth to him too. I think there's also some distrust between him and the Winnipeg Jets organization, which is very scary for the hopes that he might get re-signed. If Patrik Laine doesn't trust the Winnipeg Jets organization, he's not going to sign there. Simple as that. And we heard reports over this past year that the Winnipeg Jets organization, and especially that locker room, is kind of distance between the young players and the older veteran players. And there isn't just a divide, there's a gap in the team in that area. And that could be something that Patrik Laine is dealing with as well internally with the Jets, and something that he might be scared to go back to. If I was in that situation, it would be rough, especially at the NHL level. It didn't exactly seem like the best area to be in with the Winnipeg Jets last season. There's guys like Trouba and Myers that ended up getting shipped off. But again, it doesn't seem like a healthy environment, at least compared to other teams right now in the NHL. And while I already kind of see the distrust that Patrik Laine has in the Winnipeg Jets, I can also sense some fear that he might have going back to the Winnipeg Jets. Again, a team that, from an outside glance, didn't exactly seem environmentally healthy, especially on those younger players. It can be a stressful situation in that locker room. And again, a team that had a lot of expectations last year, failed against the St. Louis Blues. It's not going to be the greatest area next season. I feel like Patrik Laine has, again, some worries of strapping himself into that type of commitment, especially to a longer-term deal. And I totally get that. With the Winnipeg Jets, again, that whole situation did not feel great, and especially for a guy like Patrik Laine, that's something that he might want to stay away from. And let's not forget the importance of Patrik Laine to the Winnipeg Jets. They're a team that if Patrik Laine were to leave to like the Liga or something, I think that would be a huge blow to their team. They might not miss the playoffs or something, but I think they won't be a slam dunk by any means. They're a team that, again, on that offense, kind of needs a guy like Patrik Laine to glue it all together, and especially with his goal scoring in the past few years, that has been super valuable for the Jets. But I think when it comes to Winnipeg, again, playing that hard to get, I think is good for them in the short term. I would not want to pay a guy like Patrik Laine $8, $9, or $10 million for a long-term deal. It seems like a huge risk, but it also seems like a huge risk for Patrik Laine to go back there in the first place. And that's where I kind of get the sense that it might be a lose-lose situation if, let's say, Patrik Laine signs a long-term deal in Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg might be better off for their internal team to maybe trade a guy like Patrik Laine, get a solid defenseman back, and maybe even a solid forward back too. And it might also be even better for Patrik Laine. Again, a player in that environment, which might not be the greatest towards him personally. If he goes to a different team and gets some even better playmakers, that could be a match made in heaven. The Montreal Canadiens were one team that was floated around in rumors, and him with Jesperi Kotkaniemi looks pretty good for Montreal. Now, I personally like the Montreal fit quite a bit because I think it just makes a ton of sense. Montreal was a team last year that heavily struggled on the power play. A guy like Patrik Laine would fix that instantly. And I feel like Montreal also has assets to give to get a guy like Patrik Laine too. Now, when it comes to Winnipeg, I think there's a couple of necessities in a trade for Patrik Laine. When it comes to Laine, I think they'd want to get a forward back, a guy that could, again, somewhat replace his offense to a little bit of a standard. And I think they'll also want to get at least a top 4 defenseman back. And going back to the Montreal Canadiens, I don't think they'd trade a guy like Weber or Jeff Petrie, but I feel like there is a couple of assets there that Montreal would be able to give. Now, when it comes to my proposed trade between Montreal and Winnipeg, I have the Montreal Canadiens getting, of course, Patrik Laine, and that being the only thing there. And if it is the only thing, if Patrik Laine is the only thing going back to Montreal, I think going back to the Winnipeg Jets, it would be Victor Mete, Jonathan Drouin, and a 2020 first-round pick. I think both these sides make sense for these respective teams. Victor Mete on the Jets would be nasty, and Jonathan Drouin could rebound heavily on a team like Winnipeg. With guys like Blake Wheeler, that's a match made in heaven for him. And even without the Montreal Canadiens, I think there would be teams out there interested if the deal is right. Teams like New Jersey, teams like Carolina Hurricanes, maybe even the Columbus Blue Jackets, since they've been super crazy in the past. But overall, when it comes to a Patrik Laine trade, it's for the most part, it seemed unrealistic in the past couple of years, but being an RFA now and pretty much having that standstill as a contract negotiations, I think it could definitely happen. And it might be the best way for both Winnipeg and Patrik Laine to kind of sort this ideal out. I think in the end, probably the most likely thing will be that he does end up signing in Winnipeg, but a trade could definitely happen. And again, I think the Montreal Canadiens right now are the best fit and probably the most likely team. Now, while I don't think it's likely whatsoever, I could definitely see Patrik Laine kind of using the Liga as a spin in his negotiations because, again, we haven't seen too much traction on either side when it comes to any sort of agreement, but having that Finnish Liga kind of as a negotiation ploy could definitely work for Patrik Laine too. Again, I don't think it's super realistic, but we saw Jesse Puljujarvi sign the Liga as an RFA. It can be done. While obviously this is a much bigger situation, I can still see it happening, even though it is totally unrealistic. And again, this is where we get into the stalemate on both sides, because it doesn't seem like either side really wants each other. It doesn't seem like Patrik Laine wants to be a Winnipeg Jet. It doesn't seem like the Winnipeg Jets want Patrik Laine. And again, signing that type of contract long term, it does exactly seem like the healthiest relationship to me. And that could be a situation that is resolved if, again, there is a trade there. And I think it might make both sides happier. If it does, I think hopefully the Winnipeg Jets get stuff in return. Again, I think that trade of Montreal could definitely benefit them both in the future and in the now. And having a guy like Patrik Laine for the Montreal Canadiens would be awesome for their offense. Again, it's a situation that is definitely a sticky one. It's not a simple one whatsoever either, but hopefully it does get resolved, and hopefully Patrik Laine is on some NHL team next season. But of course, with this video, I need to hear your guys' thoughts down those comments down below. So let me know, what do you think about Patrik Laine and his crazy situation with the Winnipeg Jets? Do you think he should leave Winnipeg? And if so, where do you think he'll end up staying next season? But if you guys want some more Grav videos just like this one, you should click on this card right here to watch the full playlist of all my NHL trade rumor videos, every single one of them. Trust me, it's a good deal. But that'll be it for today, guys. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Again, comment down below your thoughts on Patrik Laine and where you think he ends up. Of course, share this video for friends, trying to grow the Grav gang as much as possible too. I'm Nathan, and I'll see you guys in the next video or stream. Goodbye.